everybody. Welcome back to Colony Drop, your favorite Gundam podcast. My name is Isaac.
And my name is Brian, and this is a podcast where we talk about anything and everything related to the Mobile Suit Gundam franchise, from the anime to the music to the movies to the models to the clothes to the food to the
run-on sentences to the repetition of Gundam, because we know each time there's going to be like a Gundam, a teenager thrown into a cockpit, a war, a bunch of mono-eyes up to no good, some space fascists, probably a democracy that doesn't work that well.
To the lore, to the headcanons, to your own headcanons, Isaac.
That's right, Brian. And speaking of headcanons, tonight we're going to be firing those cannons, because tonight we're talking about headcanon scratchers, headcanon conundrums, Gundam conundrums, or as I like to call them, Gunundrums.
Oh, I was like, he's not going to do it, is he? And then he did it.
As you can appreciate these terms, Brian, I set up the pitch and then I hit the ball out of the park.
I felt Gunundrums coming like 5 or 6 words before you said it. I was like, don't do it. Don't fire that cannon.
He's like, oh, he's going to do it.
It was like Garen pulling the trigger on the space laser. He just went and did it anyway.
Your house just turns white. You're like, oh shit, what's going on? Your wife's like, what's going on?
It got hit by the Gunundrum.
It's the solar pun. Oh no.
But yes,
listeners.
That is correct. Tonight is volume. I'm going to call this volume 1, Isaac, because I feel like we're just going to come up with more of these. But I'm going to call this volume 1 of Headcanon Head Scratchers. And you want to explain to the listeners what a headcanon head scratcher is?
Listeners, you're anime fans and you're Gundam fans. You're probably fans of sci-fi and fantasy and even other genres, drama, action, adventure, all kinds of things. Books, media, all kinds of shows, movies. You know, watching these things, reading these things, that sometimes in these worlds, things happen and you scratch your head and say, hey, wait a minute. Or you're watching Gundam, you're like, oh, this part kind of doesn't make sense. Or, what do you mean? That doesn't have any logic to it at all. And this is kind of for addressing that. Things Brian and I have maybe each individually noticed while watching Gundam that made us kind of pause, or after an episode was done while we're getting a sandwich, think to ourselves, hey, I don't think that part really makes a lot of sense. So that's really what this open-ended episode's about. I'm sure you listeners have seen a lot of Gundam and thought to yourself at different points in different episodes or movies, this part doesn't make sense. Why did this happen? Or something in the show or the movie just kind of bothered you as far as, that doesn't sound like it really would work in actuality or the way the world works, either the Gundam world or the real world. Brian, is that kind of how you approach today's episode?
Yeah, it was anything that kind of, to your point, makes you go, I don't know about that. It's like, when Larry David, just something's not working for him in Curb Your Enthusiasm. He's like, like this is like those things where you're like, I don't know, that seems like an important thing that doesn't make sense to me. And so we're going to talk about some of those things tonight. If you've thought of anything about how to explain it with your own headcanon, we can talk about that too.
I have 2 sort of honorable mentions, I'd say, almost. We're not really doing a top list that we normally do and stuff like that, so honorable mention isn't quite the right phrase, but close enough. Honorable topic, honorable point. We'll put it there. Brian, do you have anything like that?
No.
By chance? No?
I have 5 total. I don't have any honorable mentions. How many do you have total?
I have 7 actual choices total.
All right.
Which are kind of questions, really.
Okay.
One of them is almost a 2-parter. These questions, they could have been about anything in any Gundam universe, any really category related to Gundams, really. And it was really a chance Brian and I wanted to just sort of discuss stuff that kind of rubbed us the wrong way. To put it lightly, like, I don't know, a bit of a sore sticking point each time we kind of think about it. We're like, this thing always bothered me. Listeners, you should kind of approach it that way when you're making your own list, and you should. You probably already have your list. What am I saying? In your mind, you probably have these things, yeah.
Just look inward, and you have those cannons already armed. You just have to fire them. Yeah. I have one funny one, though.
Oh, they're all funny if you think about it.
That one doesn't rub me the wrong way as much as it made me laugh when I thought of it, because I was like, this makes 0 sense, but I don't care.
Oh, should we say the one for last or first? I'm kind of
I'll do it
curious.
like in the middle.
Okay. It'll be the meat and the sandwich.
All right, well, you got a lot more, so why don't you start with your 2 honorable mentions and then maybe your first one?
Sure. Okay, one of them sort of an honorable mention question. The other one's sort of a aha moment that I had. So first I was thinking, of course, this sore topic that I've brought up multiple times of this is almost always in the universal century.
Sure.
The Earth is always kind of like one more drop away from destruction, right? Oh no. Oh no. If they drop one more, it'll be the end of the world. Well, we can't let them drop another colony. The Earth will be in nuclear winter and, the war will be over. The Federation will be an ice cube. The more I was thinking about this, I finally came to an answer, Brian, about why Zeon, in its many forms, Neo-Zeon or whatever, is able to keep dropping colonies.
Okay.
And the Federation just kind of keeps up and keeps going at it. As opposed to, hang on, hear me out, Char's counterattack. When Neo-Zeon under Char was going to drop Axis on Earth, also, according to a lot of characters, dooming the Earth to a cold, bitter death, if not an instant death, right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
And the reasoning, of course, was laying right in front of us, Brian. It has to do with the obvious fact that colonies are essentially hollow cylinders, whereas an asteroid is an incredibly dense rock in space. So taking that to adjust my headcanon and kind of say, okay, Isaac, you can't really blame Zeon for dropping all the colonies when, if you think about it, we need like a lot of colonies to equal one asteroid.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
It kind of even makes Char that much more of a jerk, right? Because he tried to do 2 asteroids. He got the one in the beginning, and then he tried the even bigger one.
It kind of makes Char a bit more brilliant, actually, because he learned the lessons of old school Zeon, where Delaz, it was great that you pulled it off, but this is the same colony drop that we've already gone through. Who else to try to? Neo-Zeon.
Yeah.
You dropped it on Dublin. This is the same thing we've already done. Earth is still there. Almost nothing's changed, especially that Dublin drop.
Yeah, Haman's didn't even crumble correctly. It just sat there, the old lawn dart,
Right, but the only asteroid that seemed to actually put the world in peril was Axis. Axis looked like it would have done the job.
Axis seems like a serious threat.
Right. We're just talking orders of magnitude. Axis is big enough to the point where it's like we're pretty much approaching Solomon size. And actually, that's a good question. Which asteroid is bigger besides... Well, we know Babaku's the biggest. What's your headcanon, Brian? Shoot from the hip. Is Solomon bigger than Axis, or is Axis bigger than Solomon?
Oh, I would say...
Damn, it's hard, isn't it? Wow.
I would say Axis is bigger than Solomon.
Wow.
But that's hard to say. I don't know that any of them are all that big.
Really?
Although,
Solomon looks huge.
Axis looked pretty big in Char's counterattack, so...
Yeah. Solomon looks big.
Solomon does look big, but I feel like you have to see Solomon next to something to judge it on a relative basis. Like, we never saw Solomon just falling.
True. Yeah. I don't know. But in any case, that's my headcanon sort of internal resolution.
That just gave a Zeon somewhere an idea. They should go drop Solomon now.
Pretty much. At this point, like, someone should have said, well, Char had the right idea. We've been throwing the wrong objects at Earth.
You mean we got one left? Let's go use it.
Yeah.
By the way, does anyone feel like Isaac's constant complaining about colonies not big enough is just like a reverse psyop to get you to believe that it's no big deal so that he can just drop more colonies on Earth and like have you not care about it? I feel like this is an operation that he's pulling on the public.
Wow, this is quite the psyop. Until I start my own space company that only builds giant cylinders in space.
He's been working on you guys for 5 years, listeners, with this propaganda.
Okay, my next thing was kind of an open-ended question. Not really a conundrum now that I think about it, but depending on if you're torn, it kind of is. Brian, would Revil have supported Admiral Cohen had Revil lived, or Admiral Earl Grey, who was in charge of like the Birmingham and was so excited about his new ship at the Naval Review?
Oh, I think Revil would have been on Cohen's side. I don't think... Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think... He would have saw right through Earl Grey.
What makes you think, though, that Revil would have been so pro-nuke? Which is essentially what Cohen's plan is.
Well, I think Cohen, even though he was embracing the nuclear approach, I'll say, he had a heart of gold compared to the rest. And I feel like he's Revil's people.
Okay.
Whereas I don't think Revil would get along with the other crowd at all. In fact, I would say even if Revil didn't die, I bet Jamatov and friends would have probably tried to kill Revil anyway.
Wow, that's a good point. Or at least Revil would have been such a strong, like, opponent
Right.
to Jamatov and the Proto Titans that they might not even have made a move to try to make the Titans if Revil's still around. Cause
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, they would have to gotten rid of him somehow. You know, I don't know how old Revil is. I mean, maybe he was close to retirement, death anyway. But
he was up there, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder, does he have an official age? Let's see.
That's the problem with Gundam. Sometimes you look at people's age and their animation, and you're like, nope.
Yeah, I was going to say he's 42, and I'm going to be like, come on.
The worst one is Burning, right?
Yeah.
Burning got the,
yeah, see,
got the
they
worst
say
aging.
General Revil is only 58.
Oh my god.
I don't know if that's true. That's just off some random website, but
he had more gray hair than my grandfather.
yeah, he looks way older. There's no way. He looks like he's late 60s at best, right?
Wow. God, he even looks past late 60s because, like, his hair is like, he's Santa.
Yeah, General Revil is a mall Santa.
Pretty much, yeah. He's even got, like, his pudge. Wow. Oh, my God. See, okay. I can understand Revil saying, well, we have to take out dropped colonies no matter what. Who cares if you use a nuke?
Yeah.
But at the same time, nukes are kind of the go-to weapon of Zeon. But then again, Revil would do anything to take out Zeon or end the war, as we saw with him willing to do peace. So if that means a nuke, sure.
Right.
So, okay. He's a Cohen team. All
and
right.
again, at that point, the Antarctic treaties, Zeon's gone. It's not like he was that far outside the rules anyway.
Right. Good point. Well, here's my first question,
All right.
Brian. That's kind of always bothered me.
Okay.
We're actually kind of starting at the beginning in a way. In the 1 Year War, Brian,
Yes.
it is perhaps the greatest failure of military intelligence in the 1 Year War's history and the Universal Century's history that the Federation failed so badly in the early months of the 1 Year War, Brian.
Yes.
Despite having a population numerical advantage and a resource advantage. How did this go so badly, Brian? That is its own untold story and how the Federation had no idea. Well, I mean, Origin does somewhat address this, but actually addresses it a lot. But man, even with Origin's story, the Federation just totally did so horribly in the beginning of the 1 Year War, Brian. Why? Is your headcanon that they really had, outside of Cohen, had a low opinion of what a mobile suit could do, and they just assumed their regular ships and fighters could handle it? Or is this something else? Is this a case of kind of going to the assassination of Giran Zabi plot manga?
Yes.
Is this a case of the Federation had Zeon sympathizers within it that hurt the war effort in the early months of the war?
I think it's a little from all the columns. So, I think one, it's hubris and arrogance.
Okay.
Right.
Sure.
That we are so big. No side could possibly challenge us. Those losers up in side 3, they got nothing.
Right.
I think it's what I would still consider to be an untold story. That was one of the best threads that Plot to Assassinate Giran had, was that implication that there are people on both sides not engineering the war, but I don't know the right word is, but
steering,
guiding the conflict, and they're kind of
nudging.
Because you called them, Zeon sympathizers or whatever. I don't know that they have a side. Like, their side is money. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so if they profit, then they don't really care who wins because they're going to be okay. So I feel like you have a lot of those people involved. I think also some of it is just, I think mobile suits were a surprise to them.
Yeah.
Or at least Zeon's competence in mobile suits. Like, they were just completely taken aback. So that, I would say, to your point, their intelligence was lacking. Because there's a difference between your actual intelligence on the ground lacking and then your brass just being completely out of touch. I think those are both lacking. And so, because you could have, even if your intelligence was good, you would have found out about the mobile suits, even if your brass didn't care about it. Here, I think you had both happening at the same time. So I would agree. It feels like a colossal failure on all sides. But that angle of people in the background kind of steering the war, I think that's very intriguing and should probably be expanded upon at some point. I just don't know that story sells well because there really won't be many mobile suits.
True.
Unless they tell it in a similar way to Plot to Assassinate Giran, where there's flashbacks and stuff.
Yeah, or we see, like, those horrible proto gun cannons that they sent out on the moon.
Yeah, in Origin. Man, those did so bad. Those were so terrible.
technically the first battle of the 1 Year War.
Right,
but
in the origin continuity, yeah.
okay, it's just, that always rubbed me wrong how I felt like almost a weapon of some kind would have kind of made it more sense that Zeon did well. Like, I don't know, Jormungand was actually really good for a while
Yeah.
or something, but no, it was really just the mobile suits and my headcanon personally now that there was the influence of Dagwin's network that he built up behind the scenes.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good
Yeah.
headcanon to use because I feel like that fits thematically.
Yeah.
You know, and you can build around it rather than just placing it at the fault of someone's incompetence.
Okay, well, moving on, Brian, what is your number one? Or not necessarily in order, but yeah.
Yeah, this is the only one I'm going to rehash that I've mentioned before. I brought this up during our seed reviews, but I had another epiphany today. And this is Kira and Athrun not being able to text each other or communicate with each other, especially during the first seed, where they're like, oh, well, you know, where Kira's moping. It's like, why is Athrun being that way? That's not Athrun. Athrun's like, why is Kira doing this? Da-da-da. You know, they're like, I know it's him, and they're best friends and all this stuff. And so, again, did they lose each other's numbers? Does email not work? And I know, Isaac, that they told us that communication is just kind of like vaguely difficult between the colonies and Earth in this timeline.
Sure.
I assume because of the Bloody Valentine Day massacre and, you know, all the stuff that was dropped and whatnot, or maybe just they're purposely not communicating. But it has to be possible, Isaac, because we know that stately communication is possible. If you're the head of state somewhere on Earth and you have to talk to someone in the planets, they're going to pick up the phone. Like, that's why I don't like the explanation of, oh, well, communication just doesn't work. Like, what does that mean? Electromagnetic waves travel. Like, you can't just shut them all down. That doesn't make any sense. Otherwise, like, light we couldn't see anything. So, and then this becomes even more problematic when you realize that once Kira meets Kigali, he's now talking to someone who's from a stately family. So that she has an open line of communication somehow to someone in the plants. So all he has to do is use Kagali's phone. Hey, Miss Zala, is Athrun home? Can he talk? Or like, how can I talk to Athrun? It's not that hard. And if you need a reason, if you don't want to do that, just lie. Like, you don't have to say, oh, I'm Kira and I'm the pilot of the Gundam. Just say, oh, I'm Kira and I'm here on Earth and I'm just really want to know Athrun's okay. Can I please talk to him? And if you do that and Athrun hears that, he will get in contact with you. A lot of the plot could have been solved if they just, talked and said, hey, man, why you being a bee,
This just reminds me of Iron-Blooded Orphans, right? McGillis Fareed could have resolved the whole plot, really, by just having a meeting with
Rastal.
Rastal.
Yeah, he was too prideful to have that conversation.
Because they end up changing the whole government by the end of the show.
Right.
Regarding, though, Athrun and Kira, you raise a good point. My only rebuttal to it, though, is, they were friends when they were, like, in grade school, right? Like, towards the end of grade school, maybe early junior high.
Right.
I can see people losing contact there through, like, got new phone numbers or
100%. I agree with you.
Yeah.
But see, that's for normal people
Sure.
who are not someone who don't have publicly available addresses. Athrun is the son of the people in charge of Zaf. You know where he lives, right? So send him a letter.
In a plant.
They must have a contact us page.
A space letter.
Yeah, a space letter. I don't like it because if you think about other series, this doesn't happen because you don't typically have people that already know each other. You have people that don't know each other that have no way to get in contact with each other.
Kira's really going to have to zig and zag to try to go past the military, like, secure communications protocols for the entire Earth Alliance to reach out and get to Athrun.
But see, this would have actually been in character, though, because he reprogrammed the Gundam
Jesus.
in like a minute, right? If that's what we're supposed to believe.
True,
He was like, I don't
yeah,
like this.
you're
Let me
right.
rewrite a whole operating system in like 2 minutes.
He's a genius.
I read on Reddit the other day, someone described him as like an elite hacksaw, which was funny because, people haven't used the word hacksaw in 15 years.
Of course. It was the hack source.
But Kira is an elite hacksaw. He should be able to get around those things. That would have been such a good episode where he's like, oh, it's Athrun. Let me go get around all these things. And you could have learned more about the world, about why they were having trouble communicating. And you could have saw him show his hacking skills again.
Wow.
Or whatever, his programming skills. Boom. And then Athrun's no slouch either. He should be able to do something. He should be able to get around this. He would be just as willing as Kira to do it, and he would have the ability to get around it because he has authority in his own government.
He's got a big coordinator brain, too.
Exactly. But instead we just get them parting ways after they meet each other, and they're like, all right, well, he is going to be that way. I can't talk to him. I'm just going to look at him funny with his little bird. And
Brian, you know what's great about your idea is, like, they could have shown Kira hacking, and, like, he goes into, like, Tron mode.
Yeah, there you go.
Like, they show him in, like, his little pilot suit or something, a cyber suit.
Oh, there you go.
And he's, like, he's going on, like, the digital cyber waves and the digital cyber alleys.
That's right.
And guess who's clearly built, like, this huge wall blocking communication between the colonies. I mean, between the plants and Earth. It's Logos.
Oh,
Logos. Oh, Logos is up to no good, of course. There's limited communication between the plants and Earth, of course. Families are separated, and at the end, you see the families reunite. Oh, what a great show.
Yeah. Come on. I know they have VR chat in this world.
That's its own Gundam series, right? Well, we kind of have
that's kind of
right,
like Build
Build
Divers,
Fighters Try. Yeah, except that's very 90s now that I think about it. Where, like, the Gundams were in cyberspace fighting virus Zagos or something.
Yeah, it's SS Gridman or whatever it's called. All right, number 2, Isaac.
So, Minovsky particles and also Minovsky physics. Almost in Gundam, it's kind of like, I don't want to say the Force, because, like, new types and all that is kind of more the Force. But Minovsky stuff is very, I can't even think of the equivalent in Star Trek, what it would be. A warp drive.
Yeah.
You know, we all kind of just wave our hands and like, okay, it works. Yep. Hyperdrive and all that stuff. Okay, it works, whatever. But for whatever reason, with Minovsky technology, we see they've got reactors, they've got particles, there's Minovsky fields, I fields, which I think are related to Minovsky particles also, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's particle cannons and beam weapons, which are also, again, related to Minovsky physics. But why, Brian? Why have we not yet seen in a Gundam series, especially Universal Century, of course, Minovsky explosives, Minovsky bombs? It just sounds like such a missed opportunity that they haven't done a super weapon like that or something. All the threats and super weapons they keep recycling, namely colony drops, why hasn't anybody said, you know what, in this manga, we're going to have them figure out a Minovsky large-scale bomb or something.
Yeah, you could call them like M-bombs or something.
Oh, there you go. It writes
That'd
itself.
Be cool.
Wow.
That's a good question.
Is there any reason?
It's been a while since I brushed up on my Minovsky physics, but I believe it's basically just normal fusion, but being able to do it in an ultra compact way because of the particles being able to create like the right lattice or whatever to shield it.
Ironically, Professor Minovsky got pretty compact when he died at the end, and a mobile suit landed on top of him, killing him instantly.
Oh boy. We should actually do a whole episode on Minovsky physics, Isaac. That would be fun.
Yeah, we should, and we should get an actual physicist.
You know what? I asked on a gun
local university
kid. I asked a long time ago on a Gundam message board. This is back in 2003. I was like, "Oh, give me all your information on Minovsky physics. So like how much of it is real and how much of it is just hand waved, etc." And like the first comment was just like, "Why do you need to know this? This is so stupid." And then like the topic died because that person was like a mod, and I felt so disheartened. And so I hope that guy is just living a terrible life right now.
I hope that mod gets destroyed by the first Minovsky weapon.
I hope he got compacted, just like Professor Minovsky.
Yeah. I hope he has the same fate in Gundam Thunderbolt as those Zeons who got like incinerated by the beam saber that came through like the ceiling.
Man, that was brutal.
Turned them into cornflakes.
Good Lord, that was one of the worst ones.
God, what a terrible mod trying to kill discussion. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it was bad, right? But I mean, I know there is some about Minovsky physics in our Gundam the Official Guide, and now that I know more about physics than I did back then, I'm sure I could better relate the concepts.
Sure.
But yeah, that's a good topic. But to your point, that's a good question. I'm not sure why we haven't seen M-bombs, for lack of a better word. I mean, maybe they're not much different than H-bombs today, so that could be the reason.
They're just smaller.
Yeah, they're just ultra compact. Which
are they like snooks?
Oh God, don't get me started on the snooks.
They're very good at disappearing small islands.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Shout out to The Losers. Great comic book series.
Incredible movie, too, Brian. It's your favorite movie.
Except for the snook part. That was just dumb. Well-casted movie, but the snook thing was just terrible. So
we'll move on from there to your next question,
all right.
Brian. The next Gunundrum.
All right, well, I'll just do my other Cosmic Era one because it also kind of relates to nukes. So I was crapping on The Last Jedi the other day with some friends.
Of course.
But someone was bringing up the light speed thing, the Holdo maneuver.
The
The Holdo maneuver, as if it was something just shockingly hard. She pushed the button and he went straight. The 1 in a million shot, as Poe said.
It's 1 in a million shot. We can't do that again.
Whatever, Poe. Okay, Blue Cosmos, we've established they love their nukes, Isaac, and they love to make a loud entrance. And they really want to nuke the plants. How many times have they tried to nuke the plants? I lost count.
Yeah, me too. I'm surprised they haven't figured out how to do it at this point.
That's my head scratcher. Why didn't Blue Cosmos use what I'm going to call quiet nukes? Every time they tried to... Why didn't they use the snooks from the losers?
Yeah.
Every time they tried to use the nukes, they sent this big barrage. It was always accompanied by all these escort suits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Stop. Don't do that. Because then they see you're coming, and they know they're about to get nuked. Why don't you strap the nuke to a little unsuspecting asteroid made of lead? You put it on a remote timer that says, hey, wake up in 5, 7, 20 days, and you shove the asteroid over. And you know what, Isaac, in space, objects in motion tend to stay in motion. It's going to get there. It's not going to have a heat signature anymore. They're not going to see it coming. Why didn't they do that?
Are they really not going to see the asteroid coming?
No, but they're small.
How small is this asteroid?
It's teeny.
Oh, okay. You mean like a car or something?
Less than that. It's just got to fit the nuke on it.
Oh, wow.
Think about
That's true,
Think about the nuclear
Like-
payload. It's not that big.
Yeah.
Most of it's the missile housing.
Think of Stargate. Remember the nuke from
Oh, yeah.
Stargate? You could that was the size of like a rice
Yeah,
cooker.
you just beam that rice cooker right
If
up
you
Raw's
put-
ass.
We need an asteroid the size of a snow cone machine. And then General Brian will put a nuke inside an asteroid the size of a snow cone machine and gently float it towards the
You could even put it in refrigerators. Just shove the refrigerators out into space, and eventually they'll get there as long as you put them on the right course.
Well, Brian, you haven't thought about the end. You haven't thought about the plant's defenses and how they have neutron scanners, which check for incoming nuclear devices, so they can scramble the gins and send them
That's
out there.
why you make them out of lead. I bet they can't scan through that.
Lead.
Yeah.
It's a lead asteroid snow cone
That's right.
machine nuke.
They'll never see it coming.
This plan of yours, Brian, I have to say, General Brian of the Earth Alliance and Blue Cosmos, we're really relying on the enemy's stupidity. Say
look,
what you will
this
about
is
like
low effort.
the previous attacks.
This is low effort.
Is it low effort?
Compared to the other attacks, yeah, you don't waste any mobile suits. What's the worst case scenario? It just doesn't work?
I'm gonna call this Operation Snow Cone. Your sneaky plan to hope they don't notice small asteroids filled with nukes heading towards their homeland.
That's right.
This kind of, in a way, did come up, right, where we mentioned, well, the Earth Alliance invented, Mirage Colloid,
yes.
right?
That too.
Why not just cloak your nukes?
Yes.
And we never got a good answer for that either.
Or maybe there's not a good answer in general for Mirage Colloid about why that's just not on everything.
Yeah, actually. I don't know what to say, Brian. I mean, I'll say this, though, in support of your plan. Your plan, since it has been untried, has as much of a chance of success, if not more, than the failed plan that Earth Alliance always does of sending up a fleet.
Right, that's my point.
With a bunch of Mobius mobile armors to launch the nukes, because the obvious strategy is clearly they're trying to just throw as many as they can and hope they get through.
Right.
And that never works because... say what you will about Zaft, but man, they really know how to shoot down those nuclear
That's
missiles.
my point. What's the worst case scenario? It doesn't work. Even if it doesn't work, you haven't lost your fleet. You haven't lost any mobile suits.
Yeah.
It's all gain, Isaac. It's all reward. There's
right.
very little risk here.
General Brian, Operation Snow Cone, brilliant plan. Welcome to Blue Cosmos.
Do I get a jacket, like a real nice jacket?
You get a blue jacket
right.
at Blue Cosmos.
Right.
There you go. Preservation of our snow cone world.
All right, next.
All right, next is something that we brought up, Brian, but it still bugs me because I was thinking about it and I realized these two sides both do it. And what I'm talking about, Brian, are eyes. Largely, I'll say, the 1 Year War, Universal Century, we have mono eyes, right? Almost always the Xeon side, the villainous side, and then we have, I'll call them visor eyes. Used by the Federation and similar good aligned forces. The difference in these eyes, as we both know, is, I mean, the mono eye, it's always kind of lit up, either somewhat dimly or brightly. It can really turn up the brightness. The gems, though, as far as we can tell, if they're lighting up, we'll never know because they're behind that visor. But for whatever reason, Brian, the Gundams, which, as we all know, are made by the Federation, the same side that uses the gems, has eyes that brightly light up at different times. Why does this happen? What does the brighting up do besides looking cool? Why does the mono eye do it and light up and look cool? Why does the Gundam eye light up and look cool? What's the difference between a mono eye and the Jim's visor eyes? Is there no difference? Because, I mean, if you think about it, we can't really see what's going on under the hood for the Jims. You know, so for all we know, there's a mono eye back there kind of sliding around. Yeah. Why this huge difference in the eyes, Brian? Namely the Gundam eyes, really. Why do they light up?
Well, see, it's because the Federation, they were willing to spend the extra money to buy the dimmable bulbs for the Gundam. And they didn't want to pay that much money so many times for the gems. Because you know how much money the dimmable bulbs would be if you had to buy them for thousands of gems? They'd be so expensive. You'd be at a Home Depot, your bill would be several $1 million. That's a good question. I think it's just to look cool. So trying to find an in-universe explanation for that is going to be hard.
I think I just thought of one in my head. I'm going to shoot from the hip and explain.
Do it.
Okay. So mobile suits from earliest to latest. We have the Xeon mono eyes, right? This is the first batch of mobile suits. To look at something, they need to kind of bright up the eye sometimes, or they do it for intimidation, one or the other. But that light's always on. Next, what comes from the analysis of the Zaku mobile suits, the Xeon mobile suits? We get our first Federation mobile suit, the Gundam. And even though the Gundam's got two eyes, and they don't really move around as much as a mono eye, they can still light up because the Federation was pulling some notes from those Xeon mobile suits and knows that the Gundam eyes, for whatever reason, we should build in that ability to light them up. Now we get to the gems, which are mass-produced versions of the Gundam. And by that point, the Federation scientists and researchers have already figured out, look, we don't really need to brighten up. We got the visor thing, so we're kind of good. The eyes don't move that much. We don't need to do the brighten up thing. We got our own system now. We'll be good. The Gundams can still brighten up their eyes if they want, because they're always kind of, one-offs. But for the main forces, you guys are good. Don't worry about, turning up the brightness settings. Okay.
Yeah, I like that. They created a feature they thought was necessary, didn't need it, got rid of it for cost cutting. I like that. That works for me. Or you could even say maybe there is a reason the Zaku's use it, but the Federation people couldn't figure it out, and so they just abandoned it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think in my head, though, between, different factions and countries in our own world. There are tech differences, but I can't think of anything as glaring as one side's, tanks always showing a bright light. And the other country's they never use that. Why would we turn on our lights?
Here's my attempt. I would say maybe, because the Gundams are always meant for more general purpose use in multiple environments.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like gyms are more specific. If you need cold climate, you take the cold climate gym. If you take, do you want the underwater thing? Then you got to get the aqua gym. So
true. Maybe
the Gundam eyes light up because they know at certain times the Gundam will need to increase its scanning ability, whereas the gyms just have one mode.
I see. That's a good answer, Brian. Thank you. So, Brian, what's next on your list for Gunundrums?
All right, let's talk about Jaburo. Or Jaburo.
Oh, no.
Or Jabrao, depending on however
you want to pronounce
depending
it.
On your
Haburo.
Haburo. So let's talk about what Jaburo is for a second here. Did you know that it is 42 square kilometers large? That's pretty big.
Well, hang on. The surface?
No.
Or...
that's
how are we measuring this?
That's an area measurement. So, yeah, area. Okay. I mean, it's not a square, but that is the total area. 42 kilometers squared. It's a multi-purpose Federation HQ military base built in the South American Amazon River Basin.
Right.
It has spaceship and mobile suit factories, research facilities. It's also the headquarters for the brass. There's barracks in there. There's docks for spacecraft, mobile suits. And probably most importantly, Isaac, this is where they were building the gyms. And they had also constructed over 70 completed Salamis and Magellans at the time when Char attacked. This is all, by the way, per Anaheim Journal, so you can go double check those if you want.
Interesting.
I tried to count the number of ways that Xeon tried to attack this thing. Operation British, obviously, was the first one. They were like, let's just drop a colony. Then they missed spectacularly to Australia's dismay. They did the Opslus project with Guineas in 8th MS team, but they built that in Asia and it never made it over to South America, thanks to Kira Yamato. There was Char's attack, which became the Battle of Jaburo. There was also another attack parallel to Char's attack in a side story manga called Mobile Suit Gundam Aggressor that was called Operation Stork. And that plan involved sending in a team to detonate a nuke in the spacecraft hangar. So,
interesting.
We've always discussed whether we think Zeon's interest in Jaburo is valid. Like, they were really focused on this place. They really thought that if they did this, if they took out Jaburo, they could, win the war. Or at least it would heavily tilt the war in their favor.
Yeah, they always seem like they thought they'd win.
Right.
Which is quite either overconfident or desperate, I always thought.
And so my head scratcher is not actually whether that emphasis is valid. My question is this. If we assume that their interest in Jaburo is valid and their assumptions of its importance are correct for the long-term victor of the conflict, why wouldn't they just nuke it outright?
That's true.
Like that, if you think you're going to win the war, isn't that worth breaking the treaty for? Because we've seen them attempt to break the treaty in other ways, right? Like Makuve did it.
Yeah.
Operation Stork was about to do it. They wanted to do it on Libo. So why bother sneaking in Operation Stork to detonate the nuke? Just bombard the damn thing. That way you don't even have to get in, Isaac. Just carpet bomb it with nukes and you win. The only way I think this makes sense is they really didn't want to do that for fear of retaliated annihilation.
Yeah. I was about to say, that's my thought. Well, if we do nuke Jaburo, then in return, every remaining nuke the Federation has...
coming at them.
Yeah, if we're lucky, it'll only hit Zeon military forces. If we're unlucky, they're heading straight for Site 3. We're going to see a Bawaku and Solomon covered in nukes.
Right, yeah. So maybe... Now, I haven't read Aggressor. Maybe we should read Aggressor one day. That's the one with the red rider. It's a pretty cool design.
Sure.
Maybe they're trying to make it look like an accidental explosion, like a natural explosion inside from some equipment or something like that. Otherwise, I just don't get why you're going through all the cloak and dagger when, because if you don't make it look like an accident, it's not like the Federation's going to be like, I wonder who detonated the nuke. Was it Zeon or was it someone else? I don't think they really have any other enemies.
How can you make it look like an accident?
Well, I'm just saying maybe they put it on something that looks like like an internal, because I'm sure Jaburo has nuclear reactors inside of it, right? So,
and the Federation's so incompetent that during a war it conveniently exploded.
Yeah, but you get what I'm saying, right? If they pull it off and it blows up, everybody's gonna know that Zeon did it and that they used a nuke. is it that much different than just nuking it outright?
You raise a good point. No, it's not, especially with Zeon being so sneaky some of the times with their nukes, or especially Libot, where they were going to use the nuke, and also Makuve just openly breaking the treaty.
I don't want to be here anymore. Nuke him.
And he suffered no consequences for it. As much as Giran at the same time was bending over backwards to build the solar ring.
Right, exactly.
Oh man. Well, no, Brian, there's no excuse for it, unless I can't even think of a reason why. Were nukes at that point rare? They couldn't be, because Giran told Makuve to launch in Kukuru's Dones Island, and the plan was to destroy, was it North America or the whole world's major cities?
I don't remember. I mean, he only had 5,
but they had nukes.
But that was just kind of like 5 he had laying around. I don't feel like they were super rare or whatever.
But man, why not do that plan? Were they trying to capture it intact, you think? Because it had military information? That's why they were so committed to just
No, I don't
rushing
think so.
it with mobile suits.
I mean, otherwise they wouldn't have Operation Stork trying to nuke it.
You know what? I chalk this up to how compartmentalized Zeon was, because we have really each member of the Zabi family kind of doing their own thing. And even then, that breaks down further. You get Makuve doing his own thing. Who else? Commander Killing from 0080. We have no idea. That's its own story, of course. Who exactly was in charge of the plan to attack Jaburo?
Who's tracking those nukes? Who's got the spreadsheet that tracks the Zeon nukes?
Yeah. Whose plan for Jaburo was, we don't need nukes. We'll be okay with our mobile suits.
If you pay Zeon spreadsheet guy, he'll hide a few nukes for you and save them, redirect them to you.
How should we attack Jaburo? We're just going to fly over it and drop our guys. don't they have a bunch of defenses pointed at the sky? Nah,
Yeah,
we'll be
that's
all right.
fine.
Wow.
All right, number 4 on your list, Isaac.
All right. This goes back a bit to Minovsky's, namely the reactors, Brian. Do these need to refuel or recharge in your mind? Or are these kind of like nuclear reactors where once they're on, they're on. We're really not turning it off unless it's going in the trash and we're done.
You would have to refuel them at some point, but I think that I'm not sure. I mean, you'd have to look at the energy output and decide how long it would take to run out, but it would definitely take a long time. Yeah. Have we ever really seen, at least in UC, a reactor run out?
No, and I can't think of any discussion of them needing to go back to refuel either. Unless it's been, well, see, that's the issue, because you have some models that clearly have like fuel pods. But then again, are we talking about the reactor?
That's propulsion, I think. I don't think that's
okay, so there's a distinction now. So we have fuel that you can jettison that maybe, I guess, helps with the vernier thrusters
I think that's
only.
What that is, yeah.
And then you have the reactor that powers the actual suit itself, and I guess electronics. And why can't it power propellant? Well, maybe you need something explosive for propellant. Okay, all right, we can talk ourselves out of this conundrum. Okay, so it's much like Star Wars, Brian, and your beef, where like we never see the ships being fueled unless you're paying attention and you see the ships being fueled.
I would argue that the average mobile suit doesn't last long enough to ever use all the fuel in its reactor.
Yeah, or
its expected lifespan is so short, it's never going to be a problem.
Unless you're in the formerly immortal fourth team.
Unless you're the reactors on the Argama or something, right? Like that thing never dies.
And it's not necessarily that the pilots are being killed and stuff, because we know there's ace pilots that live throughout the wars they're in. It's more that, like, with the rate of technology, you're probably going into a new suit during the war.
Months,
if you stay alive. I mean, if you're dead, you're dead. But,
Yep.
You don't get any problems at that point. All right, Brian, what's next on your list?
Okay, this is my funny one, and this is how in the world does Domon hide his Gundam? In all these countries that he fights in. Because, by the way, listeners, we are currently working our way through G Gundam for our G Gundam rewatch for a review. So, like, just in the first 10 episodes, Isaac, he hid Shining Gundam inside the Statue of Liberty. And to reveal it, he blows it up. So he destroys what's left of the Statue of Liberty to unveil the Shining Gundam. He hides it in the water several times. Versus Saishi versus Chico. When he was fighting against Chico in Neo Mexico, Chico's was also in the water. So if Rain took the time to put his Gundam down there, she would have saw Tequila Gundam down there, or Spike Gundam, and been like, oh, his Gundam's over here too. Let me just put mine next to his. And then he also had it under the Tower Bridge in London, or in England, which was also in the water. But like these are very public places, Isaac. So, like, is there an official, like, drop your Gundam off service where you pay a fee to the country if you're participating in the fight and they close things off for you? Like, they close the roads and, like, we got to, like, let this guy set up his Gundam for later. Does Rain do this at night when no one is looking because, like, street lights don't work anymore? Because just the Earth is just in terrible shape? Does Rain run a diversion? Is Rain just, like, really good at her job? Like, how is he getting these prime locales to hide his Gundam in every country he goes without anyone noticing?
I mean, you might have answered your own question, Brian. The world is in a state of ruin and collapse. Domon isn't just a Gundam pilot. He's from the space elite of these countries. He's from Neo Japan, one of the wealthiest countries left in the world. And he's from the wealthiest class of individuals in that country because he's part of the Gundam tournament, the Gundam fight, which determines which country will be leading the world. So, because of that, Domon is sent with cash every time he's on Earth by the Neo-Japan government, whether this is actual, like, paper money in yen, which, Neo-Japan
Neo
yen,
credits.
I assume. Yeah, I'm sure it has a lot of value to people on Earth. Or they just straight up send them with gold because Earth is such a wasteland that almost nobody has the ability to refine gold anymore, but it's still valuable. Either way, Domon off screen, just like we don't really see him eat or use the bathroom or stuff, he's clearly paying people off to do certain things.
So he just pays off all the fishermen every time that he ruins their lake or their river.
Pretty much. Yeah, like no one, everyone's gonna look the other way. I mean, also the Statue of Liberty, the one left on Earth is like the one that Neo America doesn't want because they took the real one
No, the
or the
one
one
they
they
took
want
is
to
way
space.
bigger. That's a new
Yeah,
one for
okay.
sure.
Well, that's the one they care about though. That's the one that Neo
Right.
America actually cares about. The one on Earth, they clearly don't care what the
Yeah.
heck happens to it because whatever's left on Earth, including the people, are of little consequence to the actual Neo
Well, I hope they didn't
colonies.
want it because it's gone after he unveils the shiny
Yeah.
Gundam.
I'm sure they didn't even notice. Like, oh, what
That
that old
Headcanon
thing?
joke?
Oh yeah, we got the better one up here.
This one has a laser cannon in it. Spoilers.
Yeah,
All right, number 5 on your list, Isaac.
Brian. Now we've seen a lot of different shows in sci-fi settings, anime. We've seen Star Wars, Star Trek, Stargate. Now, what's interesting about all those shows is, in general, since they're all kind of different types of space opera, we get a large variety of different
Yes.
ships. Why does Gundam, in each series really, all have ships that are about the same size? I want to use the word frigate size. We don't really get massive, huge battleships and motherships. They're extremely rare in Gundam series, to the point where like you can almost count them on one finger. Well, sorry, one hand. Why does Gundam choose to just really limit how big capital ships get in space?
That's a good question. I mean, you do have the few Deloses, right? Those are pretty big.
Yeah, they were one and done.
Yeah,
and they
we
were
don't see that.
on screen
Yeah.
for 20 seconds.
I actually have somewhat of an answer to that in my last one, so I'll save that.
Ah,
It could just be a natural manufacturing limit. Like maybe they just feel that there's diminishing returns after that. Also,
That's a good
I would
point.
say they may have learned from Xeon because when the Delos did burn, it didn't go well for Xeon. Because if you put that many of your mobile suits in one basket, it's like having all the
Yeah.
eggs in the store in one basket and then you drop the basket.
Yeah, for a while I used to sort of think the Delos was like, well, Xeon really has to defend just one side, so yeah, it makes sense that they put it all into one mothership. And then I thought about it more, and well, if that mothership gets taken out or damaged, who's gonna service all those mobile suits? Like, I guess they can try to land on like nearby ships, like Gato
Right.
did, but at a certain point, there's too many mobile suits to service and too few ships.
Right.
So you probably were better off building more capital ships of a manageable
Right.
size.
Yeah, it gives you more options. You can deploy them in multiple directions instead of just going in one direction. And then I mean, even on the Federation side, they made what was the Birmingham? Was that the one in 0083? And then it lasted like 5 minutes, right?
I don't think we ever heard plans to make more Birminghams after that.
Yeah, so I would say maybe it's because they really just haven't been successful.
Yeah. Oh, for our Navy, I guess Navy historians or members of the Navy that are listening, even general
Right.
military, if like the first ship of its class like goes down and sinks, is the general plan for the military like, well, that's clearly unlucky. We're not we're not going to repeat that mistake, or do they just pump out a new one?
Yeah, that's tough. I don't know.
Let us know.
It'd be interesting to get someone who's been in the military or knows more about military history about like large ships. For us in the real world, it's probably just a manufacturing issue. Like, where do you store those things? Like, you have to have a port to hold it. Like, remember there was that one of my favorite military documentaries is called The Greatest Raid. I think I've mentioned it on here before, but it's about in World War II, Germany was building this huge ship. And so they figured out where they were going to be building it because there was only like one place that Germany could store such a large ship. And so they just sent everyone in to blow that dock up. And if they blow the dock up, well, then the ship's screwed because there's nowhere to land. So it's kind of the same thing here,
So-
and at least in the real world. Like, there's a natural limit to what we can do.
So they didn't end up building.
I don't remember.
The ship?
I know the attack was successful. I mean, a lot of people died. It was pretty much a suicide mission.
I see. All right, Brian. What's next on your list?
My last one, you'll see how this sort of relates to your last question. This is a common headcanon head scratcher, I think, for a lot of people. It's never been a huge one for me, but I decided to investigate it for this one, and I found a great answer that I really loved, so I added it to my list. And that is, where does Xeon continue to get its supporters from? And so before I get a little into it, I wanted to go over the different Zeons and their force strength.
Sure.
So one, we had the Principality of Zeon, right? 0079.
Okay.
Then after that, we had Zeon remnants, and you have different Zeon remnants. You got the Zeon remnants on Earth. You got the Delaz fleet. I would call them remnants. You got Mars Zeon, which is made up of people who left Zeon after 0079. They went straight to Mars. Then you got Re-Zeon, which I believe is made up of remnants of the Delaz fleet, also from the first Neo Zeon. They also went to Mars. Isaac, we haven't talked about Mars Zeon in a while, but in reading about Advance of Zeta, I've stumbled onto lots of Mars Zeon discussion and how there's two different factions on Mars Zeon. There's Mars Zeon and Re-Zeon, but eventually they become one by the time of F91 and Fastest Formula. Anyway, that's another discussion for another day. It's very interesting. But then we have Neo Zeon 1, which is Axis Neo Zeon or Hamon's Neo Zeon, and then we got the Glemmy faction. Then we got Neo Zeon 2, aka Reborn Neo Zeon, which is Char's Neo Zeon. And then we got Neo Zeon 3, aka the Sleeves, aka Full Frontal's Neo Zeon. So my point here, Isaac, is that's a lot of Zeons, and I think if you're a lay person, Gundam fan, you're in your mind, you're like, Zeon's back again? Why is there so many Zeons? Why are they always back? Why do they come back? Aren't they all dead? How are they not dead? Why do they have people left? I feel like that's a common question, and it's not necessarily unfounded, because I think the show perhaps does a bad job of explaining what's happening here, other than in supplemental material that requires some analysis, some linking together. And so I think a lot of people, if you're just looking in, you don't look into it, you just assume that this is true. This is all the same Zeon. It's all just pulling from the same pool of people at Side 3, and that's not true. And so the best answer I found with this was some guy had a very elegant comment. And his answer was, Zeon doesn't continue to get these people from anywhere. The answer is nowhere. And he has a great sentence. It's so short, but it really sums up the UC. This is from Jacob Bronsky on Reddit. He says, the UC is a series of conflicts ever diminishing in scope. Each conflict is progressively smaller, and each time Zeon has less people. So if you're assuming that Zeon always has the same amount of soldiers as the 1 year war, it's incorrect. Each Zeon is slightly different, and they're not always drawing from the same pool of people. They get new sympathizers as time goes on, but the numbers in their ranks are declining, just like the Federation is also declining, or at least stagnant. And overall, they're relatively minor as time goes on. And you can see this if you look at the forces strengths. Okay, Principality of Zeon, Isaac, they launched with 3,000 Zaku's at Loom.
Okay.
And then how many they made more later? Countless, right? Countless ships over the next year.
Sure, yeah.
But the remnants, what did the Lost Fleet have? They had one big ship, and GPO2, some Doms and Zaku's.
Yeah, they had the Delaz fleet and then whatever was the Shima fleet.
Not much. Neo Zeon 1, when Hamon brings Neo Zeon 1 back, into the Earth sphere, she comes back with just 300 Gazas, 500 total mobile suits, and maybe between 10 and 20 ships. 10 and 20 ships. That's it.
Wow, that's nothing.
The Glemmy faction, he has 300 mobile suits and maybe 10 ships. Neo Zeon 2, or Char's Neo Zeon, he has 82 Gyaradogas, 2 Yakdogas, the Suzabi, Alpha Izuru, and 14 ships. That's it.
Wow.
The Sleeves, they have 18 ships, around 96 mobile suits, and the Neo Zeon. That's it.
Man.
The comment about the UC being a series of conflicts ever diminishing in scope is on point. If you think about F91, there was one colony, one side.
Yeah, one fleet for Crossbone Vanguard.
The Federation barely sent any forces. And then Victory. At that point, the Federation was like 5 chicks, another chick, and a dude and his dog. There's no one left. Everybody's dead.
Yeah, Zanskar didn't even control their entire side.
Exactly. They were like one. They mostly had one colony.
Yeah, or maybe it was never vague. Definitely one at least, at minimum.
Yeah, very few.
So,
and then you think even more in Crossbone, you got Tobia. They got one ship.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jupiter's a completely different sphere, but they're definitely not a high population sphere. It came off as. But
you can see how the numbers involved is incredibly declining. And by the way, all those numbers, you can find those on from various sources on Mechatalk forums. Most of them are given out by Mark Simmons, who's the guy who wrote Gundam the Official Guide. Also, there's another user on there, McCred23. He had some good discussion about it. So, and then I wondered, Isaac, because in the 1 year war, it does say human population declined by 50%, right after the first week.
Yeah, so they say.
I wondered how long would it take you to recover your population?
Oh my God, I wouldn't know. Century?
It depends on what your growth rate is, obviously. The peak growth rate for the world, at least recently, was 2.2% in 1963, and it has declined every year since then. So in 2017, it was 1.1%. The U.S. growth rate was only 0.5% in 2023. If you're a developing country, you have a higher rate. If you're a developed country, typically you have a lower rate. So if you plugged in, let's say you were just booming and you did 2% a year, it would take you 26 years, or it would take you, I think, 36 years to get back. And that's if you did 2% every year. So if you were just like peak developing country, the whole world. So it's never going to happen. So it's going to take much longer than 36 years.
Wow.
And then to put that in perspective, another way, the U.S. has 14,000 combat aircraft in its inventory. That's counting all models. It doesn't mean we have like 14,000 of the latest, whatever number we're on. No, that's everything.
Yeah, okay. Transport, logistics, drones, scouting.
Yeah,
okay.
anything that could be used in combat. But so that puts into perspective how many mobile suits there are relative to what we have today.
How few, almost, really.
So I think that's a very elegant answer. Where does Xeon continue to get its supporters from? Nowhere. Everything is dwindling in the Universal Century.
Yeah, in effect, you're kind of saying the 1 Year War Xeon was really the last of Xeon.
It was peak Xeon, and then everything else has been just kind of this remnants and drawing from new people who were pissed off either at the Titans or the Federation or just other things. But they're so small relative to the original Xeon that it's just peanuts.
You ever make toast and it's maybe a little bit too well done on one side, a little bit dark brown. So you just get your knife and you scrape it off.
Yeah.
Xeon was the bread. Everything that's scraped off is every Gundam series after the 1 Year War.
That's right. It's just whatever was on the plate.
That's all that's left.
And there's some
Xeon.
Rogue, there's some leftover butter on there too. That's
just put that down the sink. Very insightful from that Redditor or whoever he was. Forum.
Oh yeah, Jacob Bronsky. You sound like a cool dude.
Good for you. You earned our Xeonic Gundam fan Medal of Honor.
As of this writing, he wrote that 5 days ago, which is really random. Because I was like, oh, that's a very timely discussion. But then the Mecha Talk forum that I was reading at, that was from 5 or 8, 13 years ago or something. So people have been having this discussion for many years.
Wow. Thank you for helping the Gundam conundrum. The conundrum.
Mecha Talk, that thread was from 2009, so 16 years ago.
An observant man, clearly noting the impossibility of each series having just larger and larger enemies. Not at all. We're in the same Earth sphere, and it's not happening.
Oh, and the other thing about Hamon's Neo Xeon, there were only 32,000 people on Axis.
Really?
Yeah, and I think only 10,000 of those were soldiers. The rest was like their families.
Wow. Well, the more you talk, Brian, the smaller Axis gets.
Abaoku's definitely bigger now.
Oh, definitely. Are you kidding? Abaoku's like the mothership from Independence
There you
Day.
Just send in Rusty.
Oh, boy.
It's going to get you.
Yeah.
All right, what's your last two, Isaac?
I only have the last one, actually.
Oh, okay.
This last one, I think you're going to like, Brian, because it has to do with G Gundam.
Oh, I love it.
How did the world of G Gundam, Future Century, as we all call it go from having wars on such a massive scale, I assume with mobile suits, that the planet was just left environmentally wasted? I guess you can read through the lines and assume some types of weapons were used, like maybe nuclear, biological, or chemical.
Sure.
Stuff bad, because a lot of the planet's just gross. How did the Gundam fights go from these countries having huge armies fighting each other, I presume, to eventually just one Gundam? Do you think they started off saying, well, is this the result of multiple agreements, I'm saying, where the armies just agree to get smaller and smaller? Before the actual Gundam fights, they had a 10 mobile suit Gundam army that fought each other or something like that? Or do you think the devastation was just so bad, somebody's got the right idea of just one Gundam, one country?
I thought they implied that it was always one-on-one, and it was more like, this place is already trashed. Let's go do this little competition down here where it doesn't matter.
Not in space.
They're basically treating the entire Earth like the abandoned warehouse district of Angel Grove in Power Rangers, where it was nothing matters over here. You can knock down every building. We don't care.
Can you imagine?
Because we live up here.
The insurance for opening a business in Angel Grove, a warehouse or an apartment building.
Right, and why did they keep rebuilding those buildings in Angel Grove?
I mean, maybe the city was underwriting them. They're like, look, we can't dissolve the city. They also only fight in the same hilly area. Also, it's a bit of a money train too if they're getting federal and state funds, right? Because it's they're gonna keep sending us money if we keep building this.
Yeah, maybe they wanted to contain the conflict, so they just kept rebuilding it.
Yeah.
They didn't want them to go anywhere
They're
else.
giving Rita a little bit of money under the table. Scratching her back.
Again, I don't know what happened to the Earth. I mean, they don't make it super clear, at least in any episodes I've rewatched. But I think they implied that it was always one-on-one.
Okay, so there was never just a downgrading and this is like the end result. It was just, God, I really want to see how it first started. Like, there has to be a series on the first one.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't shown that so far in my rewatched episodes, but there is, I have the collector's edition Blu-ray box set, and it comes with this, like, I don't know, 100-page booklet.
Wow.
With information about the series. So I'm excited to go through that when we do the review, tell you what's in there. It has information on every mobile suit, all the production notes, all the history of the timeline, so I'm wondering what it has in there.
Interesting.
I've never seen it posted online or anything. I wonder if anyone's scanned it. But it's a thick book. It's small, height-wise, but it's thick.
Really? What's it called?
It's thick. It's the collector's edition Blu-ray set, and I think it's called like the Art of G Gundam, but it has all this information in it too.
Interesting. Yeah, I just figured that you can't really go from huge standing armies to just agreeing to send one Gundam. I assumed, I don't know, my headcanon, it's kind of like all the nuclear weapon treaties we have, where it's like, well, you can only have 1,000. Well, you can only have 5,000 of this kind. You know, you can't test them anymore.
Right.
They must have done a similar thing with their militaries if they're down to like one Gundam.
I mean, they do make note that I think that the Gundams in the Gundam fight, they were retooled for dueling rather than military use. Because if you look at the suits that you see in G Gundam that are not meant for the Gundam fight, they're actually pretty advanced.
Yeah, they're like regular.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say
like they have a mobile armor and everything, so it's actually quite. I'll save some of this for the G Gundam review, but I feel like the world in G Gundam is quite bleak. Actually.
Oh, it is. Yeah, absolutely. It's a wasteland.
It's terrible. Yeah, it's quite a dark series actually with the undertones.
Unless you're in a Neo colony,
sure.
In which case, I guess it's very much mirroring our world, where life for a lot of people isn't that great. Unless you're
in G Gundam is not one of the series that, you know, if you had to pick a timeline to live in, G Gundam would not be one of them.
Is there what series would you live in? Build fighters?
Oh, I don't know.
that might be the safest.
Well, that's a cop-out answer, though, I feel.
Not the 1 year war.
We answered this once before.
Oh, God, really?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be in Cosmic Era. I feel like you have a good chance of getting nuked.
There's no good answer. Well, hang on.
There's no good answer.
Iron-blooded orphans on Earth.
Yeah, that's pretty peaceful. Now it is. Yeah. I mean, the Calamity War was not a good place to be.
I mean, under Galahorn, say what you will, but it's pretty normal on Earth.
Under Rastal, everything will be just peachy, right, Isaac?
I mean, he's a good man if you think about it.
Oh, God. That's a whole other
Rastal
podcast.
did nothing wrong. I'm going to say that at the expo.
Justice for Tekkadan.
Do we need human debris? I rest my case.
No. Justice will not be served as long as Rastal Elian is alive.
When I'm done, they'll be human targets.
Oh.
Man. Okay, well, that does it for Gunundrums.
That was our volume 1 of Gunundrums, or Headcanon Head Scratchers. So, listeners, let us know your list, your burning list in the back of your mind of Headcanon Head Scratchers that have never quite made sense to you.
It can even be something as simple as like the beam sabers. Kind of like the same thing as like lightsabers. Like, right, you know, why does the beam stop? Why doesn't it just keep going? How does it stay in? You know, it's like,
why are some pink? Why are some green?
Yeah, or yellow.
Why are some
other
yellow?
Things? Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Because there's no crystal in there, right? Like Star Wars, it's like, oh, there's a crystal in every lightsaber.
No, I don't
think so.
Beam
weapons, I don't think beam weapons have any crystal. No one's running around with a crystal in any Gundam.
Yeah. I think it's just a Minovsky particle lattice, like a shape.
Except for that ugly, like, jewel in the center of Wing Zero. I always hated that. That thing always struck me as so Megazord. While we're on the topic of
I'm pretty sure you ragged on that during our Wing review, so at least he's consistent, ladies and gentlemen. He's still ragging on it.
Wing.
That Megazord looking abomination.
Brian, would you rather watch Victory or Wing?
Oh, God. Can I opt out of the question?
No. I'd say I'd rather watch Victory.
I might rewatch Victory because I might pick up new knowledge about the Universal Century by watching Victory.
Victory had some funny moments, like
it did
when Zanskar troops are setting up the guillotine in the town, and the people start rioting, and the troops are like, "Calm down, we're not going to execute anybody. This is just for show." Like the people just like tear down the guillotine.
What a fever dream that show was.
Well, listeners, don't forget to comment your Gunundrums.
All right, Isaac, scratch your head as you take us away.
Brian, it's been a while since we've been graced by the Federation. Salute off.
Salute off. Let me find it.
Signing off by Brian and Londo Bell. Or actually, tonight it's General Brian of Blue Cosmos with Operation Snowcone.
I think it's a good idea.
I mean, I can't argue. As I'll say this. Well, I already told you, we have just as much, if not more, of a chance of winning using that plan than the usual stupid plan of sending a fleet up there and throwing everything we have at the plant defense line.
That's right. All right, everybody. Don't forget, before you go to sleep tonight, stand next to your bed, salute that framed picture of Amuro Ray, the greatest of all time, and recite our Federation pledge. Into the night, Captain Bright, Londo Bell, Xeon fell. Liberty and justice, Amuro, trust us. You've said your farewell. Now we'll give him hell. Good luck, Operation Snowcone. Good night.